Good morning, mathematicians. We are looking at our Section B checkpoint for Unit 1. We are thinking about volume. Now, in our Section B, we're not going to be counting the cubes. We're going to be looking at our prisms and using the side lengths that are labeled in order to answer our questions. Now, let's get started with number 1. Number 1 says to find the volume of the rectangular prism and to explain or show our thinking. Now, when we take a look at a figure like this, I notice my side lengths. I have 7 inches by 4 inches by 5 inches. Let's go ahead and think about the area that this prism is sitting upon. Now, we can find the area of the base, or that area where the prism is sitting. We can find that by multiplying together our 7 times 4, which will equal 20h, which will equal the area of the base, right? Now that 28, it's important to note, is reported in square inches because we are thinking about the base that this prism is sitting upon. Now that is one step. We know that that base is 28 square inches, or the bottom layer could have 28 cubes, right? And those cubes would be inch cubes, right? We would say inches cubed. Now, how many layers could we have in this prism? We could have 5 of them. So we would be taking our 28 and we would be multiplying it by the 5 layers that we could have, and we would find our answer to be the volume of our prism. Now, let's kind of come to the side and let's do a little scrap work on this idea of 28 times 5. One way that I can do a problem like this in my head is to remember that this 28 is really made of a 20 and an 8, and both of those parts can be multiplied by 5, and then we can add those two parts together. Now, 20 times 5 is going to give me 100. And 8 times 5 is going to give me 40. So I have now found that this entire shape is going to be made of 140 cubes. And those cubes are going to be inch cubes, right? So everything that we have done thus far is really like the scrap work or the brainstorm. I know what my plan was, I carried out my plan, and I now know my answer, but it's time for us to formulate this into its final form where we will answer the question. So I am going to give my final answer in this purple color, and that'll set it apart a little bit from my blue brainstorm. Now, the first thing that we were asked to do in our question is to report the volume. So let's go ahead and let's start with a little sentence where we do that. So I'm going to start by saying the volume is 140. Remember, by itself 140 is not sufficient. We also need to report that that is a measure of inches cubed. So I have the volume is 140 inches cubed. But now we need to explain or show our reasoning. So I am going to write that the base is 7 times 4, or 28. And that is square inches, because that is a measure of area. And now we're going to say that we multiplied that by the height. And I'm going to go ahead and write the height of 5 inches. Now, down below, I'm going to write that 28 times 5 equals 140. And with that, I've really given a complete thought that explains exactly what my problem solving was that led us to our answer of 148 inches cubed. And that finishes out number 1. Let's go ahead down and let's take a look at number 2, which is remarkably different because we're really not reporting the volume. Listen to the question and ask yourself, what is my job? Number 2 says, explain or show how the expression 4 times 48 represents the volume of the rectangular prism in cubic units. So if you jump right into this problem and you get to the volume and you report the volume answer as a number, you're really not getting to the heart of this question. This question is asking us, let me go back to my blue for brainstorm. This question is really asking us to think about 4 times 48. Where do we see the 4 in the prism? Where do we see the 48 in the prism? That together their relationship is communicating the volume of the prism, right? Now, when I take a look at this, I notice that the height is 4 units. So I notice that there can be 4 layers to this prism. Now, when I take a look for this 48, I notice that I have a length of 8, I have a width of 6. Well, 8 times 6 is 48. So the area of the base, when I multiply those two numbers together, 8 times 6 gives me 48. And then I can actually end up with 4 layers that have the 48 cubes. So we brainstormed a little bit. Let's formulate this into our answer so that we can make sure we're very clear in where we are seeing this expression communicating the volume. I'm going to put my final answer here in purple, and let's write this together. I'm going to write that the base that the prism sits on has an area of 48, and remember that those are square units. There are how many layers? 4 layers. There are 4 layers of 48 unit cubes in the prism. So it has a volume of 4 times 48 cubic units. Now, I love when I see an answer like this. And what I want you to pay special attention to is in nowhere of my answer have I actually given what 4 times 48 equals. I know that you can calculate that, but we're not asked to do that in this problem. That is not a part of the question, and it really doesn't need to be a part of our answer. What we have in purple here is really hitting the target for what this question is asking us to do. Let's go ahead and take a look at our final question for the section B checkpoint. And this says a box is shaped like a rectangular prism. Its measurements are 6 centimeters by 2 centimeters by 15 centimeters. Select all expressions that represent the volume of the box in cubic centimeters. So remember, boys and girls, that within the question itself, we are given our dimensions. So I know that we need to think about the 3 dimensions of space that a 3-dimensional object has. Well, this particular object is going to have these 3 dimensions. It's going to have a length, a width, and a height, but within the question itself, we see that that's going to be 6 times 2 times 15. So there are 3 of these that do work at communicating and representing the volume of the box. The first one is pretty clear to see. It's A. This matches exactly the way that it's represented within the question stem and within what we just talked about. So A, we know, is true. Okay, A is one that we need to circle. Let's find the other 2 that do also represent 6 times 2 times 15 in one way or another. Let's take a look at B. Well, B has our 2 here, so we're seeing this 2. So the question is, does 6 times 15 equal 90? Because if it does, then we have our 2 here, and we really have our 6 times 15 here. Well, I know that 6 times 10 plus 6 times 5 is going to give us our answer here. 6 times 10 is 60, plus 6 times 3, or 6 times 5 is 30. Yes, that gives us our 90. So within this 90, we're really seeing the 6 times 15 that we needed. So we know that B does work, because 2 times 90 is like 2 times 6 times 15. Okay, now when I take a look at C as an answer choice, I'm seeing and let me do this in just a kind of a smaller font here. Within this particular 12, we could see our 6 times 2, because we would have the 6 and the 2, but take a look, the 15 does not match the 30. Right? So that is where we know that C is not an answer choice that we want to pick, because we're seeing the 6 times 2 in the 12, but we're not seeing the 15. Instead, it's 30. All right? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at D. And again, I'm going to do that in kind of a different color. So I'm seeing the 15 that I need to see, but within the 8, I'm not seeing the 6 times 2. Instead, they did 6 plus 2, which is not the way that we're going to examine and think about volume. So D is not an answer choice that we should have selected. Now, within E, are we seeing the different numbers that we're needing? First of all, we know that within the 12, we would have our 6 times 2, right? That we needed our 6 times 2. Then we're seeing this 15 right here, which we need to see to know that this is a measure of volume for the shape that was discussed. So yes, E is an answer choice that we should select. So for question A, or for question 3, we should circle A and B and E. That finishes out our section B checkpoint.